Hi, my name is Kaylee Morrison, and my pop culture artifact was on the film Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil, and Vile. Today I'm going to explore how the advent of new technology has shifted society's view of criminals and their crimes through two different genres, both visual and audio. Just as a quick background of the story, Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil, and Vile starts out with Ted Bundy meeting his soon to be girlfriend Liz Kendall at a bar and proceeds to explain their blossoming romance. The film avoids directly showing Ted Bundy committing any of these crimes, keeping the audience in the viewpoint of Liz, taking the audience on the same journey that Liz is going through in her real life, not knowing whether the crimes she sees in the news and in the papers are being committed by the man she loves. Throughout the movie, Liz finds more and more evidence suggesting that Ted Bundy is responsible for these horrific crimes on these young women, but is torn due to his kindness and never showing any signs of violence or harm to her and her daughter Molly. Out of fear for her safety as well as her daughter's safety, Liz cuts all communication to Ted Bundy but keeps up with his escapades through the news while finding herself spiraling into depression. The film reaches its apex after Ted Bundy is convicted in Florida and Liz decides to go speak with him in the late 80s, demanding he complain about his insidious deeds. Starting with the visual genre, I'm going to talk about why using Zac Efron to portray Ted Bundy was positive but also negative. Originally, my view on using Zac Efron, who was voted People's Magazine's Sexiest Man Alive back in 2017, was really sad, and I thought that the director was using him to glorify Ted Bundy and how he was able to lure in his victims to do horrible things to them. I wasn't the only one who thought this way. There was a huge controversy on this topic, and the film's director, Joe Berlinger, responded by saying, "If you actually watch the movie, the last thing we're doing is glorifying him. He gets his due at the end, but we're portraying the experience of how one becomes a victim to that kind of psychopathic seduction." One of Bundy's surviving victims, Kathy Rubin, also wrote a review on the movie and stated, "I believe that in order to show him exactly the way he was, it's not really glorifying him, but it's showing him. And when they do say positive and wonderful things about him, that's what they saw. That's what Bundy wanted you to see. The movie does glorify it more than I think it should be, but I think, like I said before, I think everyone should see it and understand him as what he was, even when he was the perfect son." The most important message behind the film demonstrates how Bundy would use his charming looks to lure female victims in. We prefer not to recognize that handsomeness and brutality can walk hand in hand, but using Zac Efron as the star makes the audience realize that the predator may not always look like a pedophile, and that you should always be careful when trusting somebody. On to the audio genre, I'm going to explain how technology has changed dramatically since the late 70s by using the Netflix short series Conversations with the Killer, the Ted Bundy tapes. In my research, I found that back then, people on the East Coast didn't hear about things that were happening on the West Coast, at least not for a few days, if ever. Nowadays, the transformation of technology through the use of the cell phone allows people to hear about a crime happening across the world as it is actually happening. But let's go back in time to the late 70s. My mom was actually attending Jacksonville University at the time of Ted Bundy's crimes and didn't hear about his crimes that he committed in Washington, Utah, or the other states he was in. She only heard about him because he was caught at Florida State University, which was only 2 hours away from where she was living. My mom heard about him because his crimes were so horrendous that he was the first nationally televised trial. Conversations with the Killer, the Ted Bundy tapes, is a series that includes 100 hours of actual recordings of Ted Bundy while he was being interviewed and interrogated, and also includes some clips of his televised trial. People are becoming more and more fascinated with crimes, and listening to Ted Bundy speak in these recordings is very eerie. What makes Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil, and Vile even eerier is that Zac Efron literally uses Ted Bundy's recordings word for word in the film. Throughout the movie, you can see that this type of doing was unheard of, and people were scared. Nowadays, we hear about crimes that happen as they are happening, which makes us even more aware that bad things are occurring more frequently, unlike back in the 70s where this was rare.